You know, a lot of these boards and agencies, they really burrow into the government. They write these sweetheart contracts, termination clauses, extremely luxurious, that if you want to sack a guy, you got to make him a gazillionaire. How did Doug Ford manage to say goodbye to the whole board and this CEO with just a fraction of the severance everyone thought he'd have to pay?
Well, that's actually an open question at the moment. How exactly did that happen? And I'm going to theorize on that in a moment. But just in case somebody is not familiar with how this all transpired over the last several years, energy prices, as you alluded to, Ezra, have been controversial in Ontario for quite some time, and a real election issue. And then there were several things that made Hydro One itself specifically controversial. One was that in order to try and balance a budget, the Kathleen Wynne government sold off part of Hydro One to private entities. So there was that. And then there was the $6 million compensation for Mayo Schmidt, the CEO. And Doug Ford, as part of his campaign, started referring to him as the $6 million man and said he's gone day one. And all kinds of newspaper editorial writers lectured Doug Ford that maybe he didn't understand how this worked. He didn't have the legal authority to do it. If he did do it, he'd have to give Mayo Schmidt a 10-point-something million goodbye package. And in fact, the very morning that this happened, the Toronto Star had written about, oh, we thought on day one he was going to get rid of the $6 million man. Well, at 4:45, day one, the $6 million man left with $400,000, and the board has said that they will all leave as well. Why would somebody leave $10 million on the table? I have no idea, but the rich aren't like the rest of us, and maybe he just decided, Ezra, you know, if that's what you think of me, I'm out of here. I don't have to deal with this. I have millions in the bank anyway.
Yeah, and of course, when you're making that kind of dough, you've got a lot of money for lawyers, but no one has more money for lawyers than the premier of the province. He's got the whole Justice Department. So it could have been very lengthy litigation, and it could have been brutal. You're right, well, we may never know what, but if his contract called for a $10.7 million severance and he walked away with $400,000, I mean, listen, $400,000, that's still a mighty fine severance, but it's a triviality compared to what he had on paper. I have to say, Jerry, between this and the repeal of the controversial child sex ed curriculum and the scrapping of the cap and trade and coming out against the carbon tax, I can't recall a premier of any province, let alone Ontario, doing so much so quickly. And it's the height of summer, by the way, when normally politicians and bureaucrats are sort of in idle mode or barbecue circuit mode. Jerry, this is very impressive to me. I was a fan to begin with, but I was worried. I'm a super fan now. What do you think?
Well, I think it's incredible they've moved this quickly, and they're also doing things that, of course, their detractors said they couldn't do. When you said you couldn't recall somebody who's done that, what came to mind for me was the late brother of the now premier, and that's the former mayor, Rob Ford, when everybody said he couldn't contract out garbage, that it was a city hall job, and he fairly quickly got that done, and he did a whole list of other things, getting contracts with the unions without breaking the bank, without allowing them to strike during the Pan Am Games, a whole bunch of stuff that people thought couldn't be done. So maybe, Ezra, that the Toronto Star editorial board should start to catch on. The Fords aren't as stupid as the board thinks they are.
That's an excerpt from my daily TV show, The Ezra Levant Show. Normally it's behind a paywall, but I thought you'd like this video, so we put it on YouTube. If you want to subscribe to watch the daily show every day, including always 2 interviews a day, and I read my hate mail, just click on this screen and become a premium member.